Hey, welcome to the Acquirable Podcast. We're excited that you are here. We talk about what makes companies irresistible, and we are with Chase. Chase, what's going on, man?
What's cracking, guys? I'm doing great. How are you?
Wonderful. We're excited to hear the story of Blenders, hear your journey. We've already been able to touch base ahead of time and just get into some of the founder stories, but that's why we're wearing these glasses.
That's right.
Looking slick.
Yeah, we're looking slick. Be loud,
Be seen, be loud.
Be
baby.
seen,
be loud.
Be seen, be loud.
That's right.
Loud. I love it, man. Well, listen, we were just talking about this earlier. I remember being in my living room, college game day. Prime puts the glasses on. I was sitting there going, I don't know who owns this company, but whoever owns it is stoked right now that Dion just put these things on. We always talk about in the beginning, everybody sees a brand that exited and goes, it must have been so easy. How lucky Chase was to be able to like stumble upon this, and they don't understand what it took to get here. So before we get into all the cool stuff, let's talk a little bit about the battle that you went through to get here. Tell us about some of the days that weren't so fun, that were a little bit scary. And then because I'm blind as a bat, I'm going to take these things off so I can see your face, my man. But walk us through a little bit. How did Blenders start? What was the story, man?
Yeah, man. So, I mean, just taking a step back, I'm from Santa Barbara, so I just grew up around surfing. I love surfing, which kind of exposed me to a lot of brands as a kid. I just fell in love with brands. So I started competing. I was on the surf team, and I wasn't good enough to go pro. I wasn't really winning contests. Back then you had to win a lot of contests to get kind of noticed. But I was getting a lot of free stuff from all these different like companies. So I started selling some of these products in my classes to kind of students. I was selling stickers to students in classes, making $5 a day. And that was kind of my first business that I started.
It sounds like a surfer.
You know? And then like before like Facebook, it was like the MySpace days, right? So I kind of figured out how to navigate through MySpace. I was pretty popular on MySpace.
Okay.
And I started kind of taking photos and doing this whole thing and like sending them in to get sponsored. And like I was getting sponsored without winning contests.
Oh, wow.
So I kind of learned early on like how to show up in a different way and be, you know, and just be seen and be noticed, you know? So that kind of built a foundation for me. And I guess you would say Blenders, right? You know, I would come down to San Diego a lot because I was competing against a lot of the schools down here.
Okay.
I fell in love with San Diego and I was like, how do I get to San Diego after school, you know? But, you know, like I struggled in school. Like school was not my forte, you know, like I just learned slower. I'm dyslexic. I had a learning disability.
My man, I'm dyslexic.
Oh, you are?
Yeah.
Let's go.
That's what's up.
You know? And, I had a terrible stutter. Like I could barely even speak. And like I had a really bad speech impediment. So I had to take speech pathology classes. I was in special education. I was on medication. Like my confidence in the classroom was completely shot. So I needed to build my confidence outside the classroom.
Yeah.
So school was always just a grind for me, you know, but I guess you could say that's where I kind of forged the path of adversity and perseverance. I learned early on that like my path was going to be different and I was going to have to work harder, but that chip on my shoulder just kept stacking, you know? And then when I get to San Diego, I'm like, wow, this is a big Santa Barbara, a lot of action, a lot of girls, a lot more waves. Like this is where I want to be, you know? And I got into San Diego State through the Student Disability Service, which was great. And then like most kids, you know, you graduate, you're like, all right, what the hell am I going to do? Right? And so I went back to what I knew, which was surfing. So I started teaching surf lessons. You know, I had this night when I was going to see one of my favorite DJs at a nightclub. San Diego's really big in music. So there was a lot of big DJs rolling through and, you know, nightlife was really popular back then. And so I went to Target and I was like, I wanted to wear some sunglasses that night. I don't know why. Something got into me. It's like, I want to wear some sunglasses. I saw a pair of neon green sunglasses from Target. I bought them for $5. I wore them to the club. Everybody in the club was coming up to me asking about my shades.
No way.
Those are sick. Chase, where'd you get them? Let me try them on, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, whoa. Like I left that night like,
oh, that's
damn,
cool.
There was a lot of attention around my shades. And like I said, I was a surf coach. So I was spending all my time at the beach and I just kind of got obsessed with sunglasses and just noticed a big gap in the market between your $200 Ray-Bans and then the $5 beater shades that I was wearing. Like, there wasn't a brand that was like priced in the middle that I could afford. I was a broke college student. And, you know, so I kind of saw a big gap and then I did a little bit of research and I saw that one company kind of owned the majority of the market and sunglasses cost more than iPads and why are they so expensive, this and that. And I had no experience. I had no idea what I was doing, but just kind of belief that I can kind of figure it out. And I knocked on my roommate's door and I was like, hey, dude, can I borrow $2,000? He's like, what for? And I was like, I want to start a sunglass company. He's like, you're fucking nuts, but here you go. I was like, all right. So I started with $2,000 and I just jumped in, man, literally.
So what did you, like, did you just like repo the ones from Target or like what was your first design? Like how did you decide what to design and make.
Yeah. So like there was just this like basic Wayfair that I wanted to kind of replicate, which was kind of the style that I was wearing.
Yep.
You know, and I literally went to Google and I said how to make sunglasses, and Google led me to picking up the phone, and I was calling wholesalers up in LA in the fashion district.
Yep.
Me and my business partner would drive up to LA every weekend, show him our concepts. He was a designer, so he was able to kind of use Photoshop and kind of make some different, mock-ups.
Yeah.
We'd go up to LA, we kind of talk to them, learn as much as we could. We see their samples, ask them questions. They spoke fluent Mandarin, so they had factories overseas that we can work with. But when it came down to actually like jumping in, they were just a middleman, so they were going to mark the price up.
Right.
We needed to be like, all right, if this is going to be real, we need to find a factory on our own.
Yeah.
So we learned as much as we could from them. And then I found a factory on Google, Alibaba. I forget exactly how I found it. And then I reached out and I just kind of like started a conversation.
Wow.
And they said, sir, we can only have, our minimums are 1,200 pieces. I said, I can't afford 1,200 pieces. I can do 300. She's like, we can't do 300. I say, I promise you, one day I'm going to be a very big customer. Just trust me.
Yeah.
And she trusted me.
Wow.
And I was right.
Wow.
And so that was my first win as an entrepreneur.
Cool. Yeah.
Learning how to negotiate.
Yep.
Yeah. And that's all I could afford was, I had $2,000. So I couldn't really get much.
That's wild.
And then how did you sell those first units?
So funny enough, I launched at San Diego State Entrepreneur Day.
Okay.
And so every year they have this like career entrepreneur day for like young, student entrepreneurs. Me and my business partner drive out there Wednesday morning, March 13th, 2012. I just will never forget it. And we brought all 300 pairs because we thought we were going to, I was so confident that I was going to sell all 300 pairs.
Of course.
We brought all 300 pairs.
Yeah.
And guess how many I sold?
A dozen?
I sold 8.
Gosh. So that was your second lesson as an entrepreneur.
That was my first punch in the gut, And me and my business partner are driving home that day, and we're like, "Fuck, back to surf lessons we go."
Yeah, right, exactly.
And it was just the first real humble pie that I had to eat at the beginning, just to be like, "This is gonna be a lot harder than you thought."
Yep.
And that was the first of a bazillion punches that you take.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And so we just kind of had to go back and like, all right, where do we go from here?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Walk us through how you got those first 300 sold. I'm curious.
They were stacked in my room all the way to the ceiling.
He's like, I still have 250 of them as a memorabilia.
My roommates had a pool table in their living room, which just became our office basically. Just shit everywhere.
Yep.
My business partner was a kayak instructor. I was a surf instructor. So every day he'd go to work, I'd go to work. He'd have a backpack, I'd have a backpack, and we'd sell shades to people that we were giving lessons to.
Wow.
And it was one pair, one style, one day at a time.
Wow.
And I would sell them on the boardwalk. I would sell them at the beach. We'd sell them at street fairs. We'd sell them at surf contests, at pool parties. Like San Diego had a lot of different areas that you can kind of tap into, which had a lot of people.
Yeah.
But it was just scrappy, man. It was one at a time.
Wow.
Truly one at a time.
That's cool. It's like a brand born amongst the people, like truly had to get sold person to person where they were going to be used.
It was as bare bones, as grassroots as it gets, man. It was like, hey, I hope you love these. If you love them, please tell your friend about them. You know what I mean?
Were you like carnival barker on the side of the boardwalk
I wasn't that guy because those guys are obnoxious.
Okay.
I wasn't that desperate. But like I was good at like this is kind of what I learned in school, just being very socially active and learning how to build good relationships and just being real and authentic with people, not being pushy. But like the product was cool. Like it was a cool local story, It's like people like gravitated towards it. And like I wasn't some weirdo going
right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like it was like all people that I kind of like were friends of friends that I kind of knew or like I was already having conversations with.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, it was a grind. It was like not easy. And 6 months in, I had to get another job, and that other job kind of like is the other fire starter that kind of kicked me into high gear.
Just like a side hustle job, like a waiter job?
No, it was like a GNC. So yeah, I worked at GNC.
Yeah.
For 7 minutes. And I held the shortest career in GNC history.
There you go. You walked in and said, nah.
So 6 months in, things with Blenders aren't going well. Like it's just we're 2 weeks with no sales. Like we can't pay the bills. Like I had to get another job. My buddy was doing side design work. I wasn't a designer, so I needed to go get a physical job.
Right.
So surf lessons were just basically seasonal. So I go to GNC, I get the job, second interview. I go in, I'm wearing slacks, dress shoes, black pants, white dress shirt. I show up and the GM says, Chase, go home, shine your shoes, iron your shirt. And when you get home, you got to sell 2 vitamin packs because every first employee is required to sell 2 vitamin packs on their first shift. Like hands me my papers against my chest. I walk out and I never walked back in. I call my business partner at the time. I go, Blake, I don't give a fuck what this takes.
Yeah.
We are making this work no matter what, because I never want that experience ever again.
Yeah.
And it was the most profound 7 minutes of my life.
Wow.
And it just was like that fire in your belly to be like, I didn't go to school for that. I
didn't show up on this earth.
I'm
to
never
do that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm never subscribing to that ever again, because that was just, that was horrifying.
Yeah.
And like, he's go, what got into you? I just got blasted at GNC, man. This is it.
At GNC.
GNC.
Yeah, exactly.
So GNC
He's got big leagued by a guy making 40 grand a year.
Go
I'm
now,
out of here.
Chase.
Yeah.
That's what it stood for. Go now, Chase. Get out.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So it was, it was just one of those moments. And then
It was like a huge favor looking back on it.
100%, man. 100%. You need those moments.
Yeah.
So when we work through this podcast, we want to help founders think about some core pillars to making their company irresistible. And efficiencies, financial culture, and scale are kind of our big things we talk about, because when a company's ran efficiently, they got their financials dialed, when there's a culture and they learn how to scale, they can do something really profound. And so Josh is going to spend a little time just kind of working through efficiencies and financials and what you learned, and then we'll talk culture and scale on the way out.
Sweet.
Yeah, tell us what you learned kind of and you and I have talked a little bit about this, so I know that you've thought through this a lot, and in the early days learned a lot about efficiencies, scrappiness. You can read that in a second layer as being like learning to be efficient, right? You needed to go distribute at scale, things like that. You had to be efficient to do that. So tell us what you learned in those early days. How'd that come to bear?
Yeah, I mean, so for specifically, it was like we didn't have any money, right? Like $2,000, we ran out of money on day one. So like we couldn't afford to hire people. We couldn't afford to get expert advice. We couldn't I had to learn everything by doing it myself.
You put did the whole 2,000 go to design manufacturing?
Yeah, it went to production, our booth at the San Diego State Entrepreneur Fair, a trademark and some stickers, and then boom, we were out. We were out of money. And so like I literally had to learn everything by doing it myself. And that's a blessing. And I think that's really, really, really important for founders, because when you're going to hire people or you're going to make certain investments, if you don't know how those things work yourself, you don't really know what to look for. And so that was a big skill. And it just builds the mental fortitude. It forces you to learn these things. It forces you to get off the couch and learn marketing and learn customer experience and learn production and learn how to sell and learn how to you physically have to do these things, and you don't have an option. It's either like survive or die, you know? And so I'm very grateful for those moments, you know what I mean? Because that gave me the fortitude to be able to handle these things.
Was there ever a time where you were like, you felt like I'm going to quit?
Oh, all the time.
Yeah.
Like I said, 6 months in, right around that when I got that job at GNC, it was like, I'm like, Blake, what are we doing? This is a joke. I feel like an idiot, It's everything that normal entrepreneurs go through: imposter syndrome, self-doubt.
But everything they don't talk about enough. And so listening to this, you got to hear that. I mean, everybody thinks you always have the confidence. You just had something different innate in you, that no matter what trial you went through, you were like, I'm invincible. Such a lie.
Yeah, it's not how it feels.
It's all a fallacy. And that's my biggest gripe. And that's what I'm most frustrated with the entrepreneur space specifically, is just all you see. It's like the modern day rock star now.
Exactly.
Everybody thinks it's this you can just jump in and you're going to become a rock star overnight. And it's so wrong. It's so predatory. It's so false.
It is.
And I'm like, no, you have no idea. This is the highest level of competition you can ever enter. And it's the hardest thing you will ever do in your entire life.
There's no built-in momentum. There's no built-in safety net. It literally, I would say, it's like being in the forest with 2 sticks. You got to make fire, and
you got
just,
to, man. You got to, and it's it's just there's just no other way around it. And so 6 months in, I was I had one of these moments this ain't working. What are we doing? And I forget who told me this, but somebody gave me advice when I really needed it most. Because when you're just starting, the vision isn't really a vision. It's like the shiny object in the distance that you can't really see. And he's like, Chase, the only way you're going to fail is if you stop. Just keep going. And I was like, fuck. Yeah. All right. So I just got instead of trying to focus on this grandiose thing, just zoom in, focus on one day at a time.
right.
How do I keep the dream alive for one more day?
Yep.
And one more day after that.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then it just became a lot more like hyper focus on the next 24 hours. What could
Exactly.
we do in the next day just to move the goalpost a little bit further down, like the ball a little bit further down the field? And then it just became a lot more manageable.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like times where you want to quit are the times where most people do quit.
Yeah.
So then you get past those times and then you can kind of keep building.
It's like every goalpost where you feel the strong desire to quit. Like that's another, to people that know that feeling, that's like another indicator like, okay, this is the day to move forward because this is another place where the competition goes down a notch, right?
Right.
Like you start at the top of the funnel. This is the next stage of the funnel right now because a lot of people are going to fall off right here.
100%. And this is just going back to just being scrappy, right?
Yeah.
It's like if somebody would have wrote me a check
Exactly.
for $50,000 and said, "Hey Chase, go start your sunglass company," I guarantee you I would have failed.
Right.
Because I wouldn't have known how to invest the money. I would have known how to spend the money. I would have known how to manage it. And like,
Right.
but like building something from a backpack from 2K forces you to like appreciate the value of a dollar.
It's exactly right.
And and so it's like I didn't raise other people's money.
Right.
This is my own money.
So you're very
you
protective
treat
of it.
differently,
Absolutely.
It's easy to spend other people's money, but when it's your own, you think different about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Tell us about, this kind of gets to financials too, but it was bootstrapped. You never raised outside money. You took the $2,000 loan from your roommate, but then how do you go to what Blenders is today from that? And that kind of gets probably to like financials and having a profitable product, things like that.
Yeah. So we kind of were like, all right, let's build a website. So we built a website and then we're like, okay, website looks great. Now, how do we get people to the website?
Exactly. Yeah. You're like so proud of it.
Like,
You're
wow.
like,
It's like, I was like, dude, this website looks amazing. And Blake's like, yeah, but
nobody knows it exists.
nobody's seeing it.
our moms are the only one that went to it today.
So like, I was like, oh yeah, duh, you're right. Because I'm such a visual guy. I need to like see things. And, like if they look cool, I'm like, this is it, And then, so I started just tapping some of my network at San Diego State. I knew some people that were like, that were building blogs and they were like very popular. And I started tapping them. I was like, hey, can we start doing like some giveaways on your blog for like all the music that you're posting? Let's give away some shades, So we started doing that. And this was kind of at the beginning stages of Instagram. And so like I took all those skills that I learned from bootstrapping, like selling and like talking customer experience. Then Instagram kind of popped up. And I was like, oh, okay. Now we have like a visual platform where I can start doing this through my phone. And we started navigating through Instagram. We were like one of the first brands to jump on Instagram and kind of figure it out. And back then it was very like it was a photography based,
right? I remember that.
App. And there was a lot of creators and new up and coming photographers. We didn't have any photographers, so there was all these meetups around San Diego that were happening, and I started showing up at these meetups with sunglasses.
Wow!
They were already going out shooting photos, and I was like, hey guys, here's some shades. If you guys don't mind taking some photos, you guys can have some free shades if you just give them some photos. Exchange of some photos. And what that did is that helped started to build the visual identity of the brand. Then the brand started to take shape. Beautiful sunsets, sunglasses in San Diego. And it was like this aspirational, inspirational feel. And it was like, whoa, Blenders was now becoming synonymous with the San Diego lifestyle. It started to kind of really show its true colors. And then from there, we started to kind of like build some followers, work with creators, and started to build, how to take those followers and then monetize them and build them into potentially customers that are going to come to our website, and started to build out our e-com funnel from there.
Where was your beachheads in the country? Was it mostly Southern California people buying the shades? Did you start to see it splinter out across the, how did that?
So we were in a bubble for a long time, man. Like in San Diego, we're kind of in our own bubble, right? Like we're like, all right, like everyone would love San Diego. They want to be part of San Diego. Like it's sunny all year round. Like we're going to sell sunglasses all year round. And then we kind of went into our first winter and we're like, shit, this is really hard. And what we started to realize was sunglasses were extremely seasonal, even in San Diego. So like we were popular in San Diego. We focused on San Diego, and then the sunshine shades started popping up, Texas, Austin, Chicago, Florida. But like that didn't really happen until we built a core group in San Diego. And then we started to see that trend over year after year after year. And then winters got really hard. Like nobody is buying sunglasses in winter. It's just even in San Diego, nobody's buying shades. So we needed to help soften the winters. So we came out with snow goggles.
Okay.
Which was a good transition.
Yeah.
Which was a natural progression for
that's cool for the brand.
Sunglasses. So we basically did exactly what we did at the beginning.
What year did you come out with snow goggles?
2016. Okay. So we had 4 years of winter that were brutal.
Yeah.
And it's probably a lot of the same people. Did you find that from like a brand?
100%.
Okay.
And so we surveyed our community.
Yeah.
But that was a risk, right?
It was a risk. It was a risk, but we had early adopters. We had already pre-existing demand.
Yeah.
So we're like, how many of you guys ski or snowboard? How many times a year do you guys go?
Yeah.
How much would you spend on goggles?
Yeah.
Like over 70% of our customers at that point.
Whoa.
Ski and snowboard. So we're like, okay. So
Yeah.
they're actually
Were
doing
you
this.
Were you pushing those surveys out at mass? Like you had contact information for people at that point and you went to a bunch of them, or was this more like the influencers we were close with?
A little bit of both.
Okay.
You know, yeah. We had like email surveys that we were doing. We had social media surveys that we were doing, and you know, we would just put designs up in the office at all times. Like we just had this thing of like my designer would make stuff, post it on the wall, and like everyone would go up and just vote on their favorite pairs.
Yeah.
And that's how we made whatever got the most votes got made.
That's amazing.
And that's just like, it's just such like it's just so grassroots, man, you know?
But the key was it was authentic to all of you, right? Like you really knew because you really were the customer base.
Yeah. And it's like, all right, like we want to wear stuff that we think is cool. We have a pretty good finger on the pulse of culture and what's hot. Can't hit a home run every time, you know? Like there's a lot of products that I'm like, this is going to kill it.
Yeah.
It just totally flopped.
Yep.
You know? But that's how you learn. You know what I mean?
So talk to us about what you learned about the financials as a guy who's, I'm guessing you weren't a finance major.
Definitely not.
Neither was I.
I'm not a numbers
Very
guy.
few dyslexic people are finance majors.
I don't do well with numbers.
Yep. So you're not a finance guy, but you're building a multi-million-dollar organization with, you know, where financials matter, margins matter, process matters. What are some of the things you learned along the way?
I just learned how to like just conserve money, and I just learned how to like get more out of like just get more with less.
Yeah.
You know, so like in terms of like I was just very good at that. You know, that was one of like my skill sets. You know what I mean? So like, and I just knew that building a brand like is going to be a long-term play. This is a marathon, and every penny, every dollar needs to go back in the business.
Yeah.
You know, and the two things we got to focus on are just like putting product on people's faces.
Yeah.
You know, we can't spend any money on dumb shit.
Yeah.
We got to be very, very frugal with how we spend money. And so I kind of had to make sure we were doing that. Like that was where I was really good, was like only spending on absolutely what we needed at that moment.
So I know one of the biggest money spends that benefited you, which we'll get to in a minute, which was Prime.
Yeah.
But what was one that you look back and go, man, we invested in this and it just fell flat?
Ooh, yeah. Well, gosh, man. So, you know, a year and a half in, or not a year and a half, I think our first year, e-com was hard to drive traffic to. We just didn't know how to drive traffic to e-com at a steady pace. So we had this moment that we got an offer to go on to this like Black Friday special, you know? And so we got that, and we did like $10,000 in sales. Holy shit. We took that 10K, then we're like, all right, now what do we do with this, right? How do we get the next bite? That was when like trade shows were like really popular. So like we didn't, you know, building website was kind of like this new thing. No one really knew how to do it.
Right.
We're like, all right, let's go do the trade show circuit. Let's go get in stores. So we invested that 10K into the Surf Expo in Orlando. And we flew to Orlando. We had a booth at Orlando and tried to get sales through stores. And so we show up to that trade show. We're next to Adidas, massive castle. We have this little like 10 by 10 booth.
I remember those days too.
We got our brand like our like graphics done at Joanne Fabrics. We had bed sheets as like our tablecloths.
Yeah.
And it was like a fucking like garage sale.
Yeah.
And it was, we show up, my business partner forgets catalogs, which is the number one thing you need, because you can't sell without a catalog. So we had to go to Kink. I mean, it was just, we carried everything on the plane because we couldn't afford to
check it.
check it in. Like we were those guys on the plane, like bumping shoulders. Like we get to Orlando and we show up and we're like, let's just make this count. We go up, you know, needless to say, we got no sales. We go back with a bunch of leads, no sales. So now we have no money. We have no sales. We just wasted a bunch of money on this on these trade shows. And we're like, not only did we get no money, but we like met all these buyers that like had all these crazy terms. Right. And like wanted all these crazy terms from us. And we're like, we can't even pay ourselves.
We can't even check stuff on the plane.
How are we going to talk about terms?
Yeah.
We're like, okay, we can't, wholesale is too expensive. This is way too expensive. So we needed to go down that path to realize, all right, we need to go down the other path. Focus on that path. That's the path that we need to focus on. You can do it faster. You can run it with a smaller team. It's not as expensive. So we're like, all right, we gotta go all in on Instagram. We gotta learn how to make this website stuff work.
Yep.
And like that kind of became our point of like our first big flop was the trade show.
Yeah.
And then we got a little cocky and did clothing. We thought we can go into clothing because sunglasses weren't really hitting. So we're like, let's just make t-shirts and hats.
Yeah.
And we're like, that definitely didn't work.
Yeah.
You know? And then I realized like, no one's going to buy a t-shirt if they won't buy your main product first.
Right.
You know? People got to trust you in one
Exactly.
thing before they buy the next thing.
Yeah.
So you got to earn that trust.
Yep.
And then you got to get permission to make the next
You
product.
guys never really went into t-shirts or hats.
No. I mean, we just went down so many different rabbit holes. I was like, let's be best in the world at this.
Yeah.
Let's just focus on this one thing.
So what was the first big hit? Like, you know, where you went from survival to
Totally.
whoa, we might actually be able to make it and be something.
Gosh, you know, that didn't really come till year 5. You know, all these things we thought were going to be it.
Of course.
We're like, this is going to be it. This is going to be it. And it was like, that's what every young entrepreneur thinks,
Of course.
right?
You have to.
You're just searching for that grand slam, that home run. And it's just a bunch of singles, man. You just got to get on base a lot of times, and that just accumulates to more.
Yeah.
You know, but 2016, we launched the Millennia frame, which is the shades that Prime is wearing.
Yep.
And so for the longest time, like I wanted Blenders to be a vibrant, active, bright colored brand that really represented San Diego. So we'd make all these bright colors, but people would buy black. They'd always buy black. And I'm like, I don't want people wearing black. I want people wearing like orange. So it creates conversations, you know? And so we took a gamble on these shades, you know, and I saw the style that I really liked. I was like, let's go wild on color. This is going to be a big risk, but like, this is Blenders. If this works, this is what we want the brand to stand for. And they were frameless. They were bright colored. They were like, I mean, flashy, you know, unmistakable, irresistible, right?
Yeah.
And we brought this out in 5 colors, and it was a gamble. It was a bold gamble, and it worked, you know. And then I realized, like, wow, we got to consistently keep betting on bold.
Yeah.
And we'll make products that other brands are too scared to make.
Right.
And let's keep going down that path because these brands won't make this color.
Won't, yeah.
They can't touch color like we can.
Yep.
But we can do that. That's going to be our way of standing out. And so we started taking some gambles on product. And then we started seeing that product work. And I was like, this is it.
This is it.
This is it.
Yeah.
Because what that does, those products create conversations. People are wearing them. Oh, dude, those are crazy. Where'd you get those?
Yeah.
Oh, I got them from Blenders down the street. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just like that minimal viable product that goes viral. Like that's what needs to work in this day and age. And that's what gets people's attention.
Well, it's so brilliant when you think about turning your customers into evangelists just by wearing, not even talking, right? Like the glasses were doing the talking.
Best ad. Yeah.
It's the best, you know, it's truly, truly the best. And so that kind of started to take off, and we diversified into, you know, women's and men's. And it's just that really helps solidify the direction of the brand.
So you started in
2012.
2012. When did you take your first paycheck?
About 2014, I paid myself $1,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love startup. Yeah.
Like, and we had an office that was $400 a month.
Yep.
You know, but that office was actually good because it forced us to like, all right, now we have one bill we have to pay, $400 a month.
But think about it,
like
2
we got
years,
discipline. Yeah.
2 years
2 years.
of working, and then finally you gave yourself $1,000.
Exactly. And it was all those little moments though, right? It's like from the pool table to the 400, you know, like 300 square foot office, that was $400 a month.
Yeah.
That was a win.
Yeah.
And then like, okay, we paid ourselves $1,000. That was a little bit of a win. Like you just, you know, and it's just a little bit each time. And then you start to kind of see that like build over time. But yeah, it's just such humble beginnings, man. Like bootstrapping businesses in this day and age just aren't, you don't hear about the stories anymore.
No, I mean, so I started my first at 23 as well, and then went on to start more. I bootstrapped my first 4 initiatives, and then I raised during COVID for a big virtual global platform we launched. But like, people don't understand the beauty and grit in self-funding and bootstrapping. And you're right, today in today's world, all these kids that are doing this are going, oh, I'm trying to raise, I deserve to raise millions, tens of millions of dollars.
Yes.
And you're like, dude, you don't understand. Like,
you don't understand. And just protecting the equity of the brand.
Exactly.
And the equity that like you hold.
Yeah.
You know, like I've seen so many young entrepreneurs or people that just like slice the pie. Once you slice it once, it's way easier to slice it up
Exactly.
again. And they give out equity to all these different people that don't really bring any value to the business.
And when you sold, you were 100%.
I was 100% owner, you know, which was just nuts.
Yeah.
You know, and that's very, very rare.
And I think too, when I watch, the focus is on, and this is like a little bit tale as old as time. Like the focus was on the raise instead of the business, and like growing the business. It was like, how do we get eligible for a raise?
It's just like, how much money can we raise? And that becomes like this whole like ego thing of like, oh,
that becomes your success, not your business.
And
how much
and
money
then these valuations go through the roof, and these companies aren't even profitable.
And you'll never get out of it.
I don't even understand.
Totally.
My brain does not I don't understand this. Like, I could not go to bed at night knowing that I am millions of dollars in debt that I'm going to have to pay back. I can't do that.
When I raised the 16 million for our company, it was the first time I'd ever raised, and it was the worst experience of my life for exactly what you talk. I had so much fun building my businesses, taking the money that I earned, putting it back in the business, growing the business. Then all of a sudden we raised from $100 billion fund.
Wow.
And there was just an expectation that you keep raising.
Yep.
Because that's good for them.
The drug.
Oh, it's like, well, don't worry about that you're down. Just go raise more money.
More money.
And you're like, what am I doing?
Yeah, it totally changes like the goal of the business, really. I had a mentor early who was like telling me about the first kind of like .com boom and bust, and he was saying like it was funny at that time because you would ask these entrepreneurs like, what's the business plan, and they would say to go public, and he would say that's not a business plan. That's like a capital event plan, right? Like you're planning for a capital event, but like the business is what's going to make that capital event happen. So what's the business plan? And there just wasn't one. You kind of see that. And there's like a discipline around raising right now where it's like a mature function.
Right.
You got to have a business plan, but it's still like the business plan is there to serve the raise instead of vice versa.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. No, you're right. There's all this focus on the raise, but like what comes next?
So how did you, let's talk a little about culture.
Yeah.
How many employees were you at kind of at max time?
85.
85.
You know?
So how did you navigate from you and your homie backpacking to actually finding the right people, creating the right culture, and keeping that like us against the world, us against Oakley? We talked earlier how, Oakley had Blenders up on their wall as a target. And so like, how did you keep the us against the world?
This was the same thing, right? Trial by fire, So what do you do? What do most founders do when they bootstrap? You don't really know how to hire people, so you start hiring your friends.
Yeah. Yes.
I started hiring my friends, and then friends of friends, and like when you're going out at night, people are asking you for jobs, and you're young, you're feeling kind of good. You're like, all right,
I could use some help.
Yeah.
So like I try to keep things pretty tight. Right. And then only bring people in when we actually absolutely needed it. So for like bigger sale spikes, like Black Friday and big sale events, like we brought all my friends in, they come pack orders, this and that. But honestly, like our first intern that we hired scarred me, and it really kind of had like a bad experience for me. And, I hired him, he was like a student, and he was giving us like some free work, and his role was to pack orders. And so this is a funny story, but we were spilling out into the conference room because our office was so small. There's a big 8-foot conference table.
Yeah.
And he had the whole table to pack orders on, right? It's like a beautiful conference table. You just go here and pack all the orders, And I walk in one day and he's packing orders on his lap. And he's like folding the bag and it's just crinkled.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you have an 8-foot conference table in front of you. Why aren't you folding on the table? And he just was like doing it on his lap. And I'm like, this looks like shit.
Yeah.
And so that gave me a little bit of trust issues of like, all right, I got to be very tight on how I want the brand to look a certain way. I want it to feel a certain way. I want it to arrive a certain way. So I kind of took the mentality, I'm just going to keep doing things myself until I got to a point where I was like, I need to get some help, And so, so we started hiring friends of friends. And then, on the weekends, everything was great. Your friends are there, but like, then it started to spill over into the office. People started to show up a little bit late. They were hungover on Monday.
Yeah.
And then you're like, all right, like, how do I discipline my friend now?
Right.
And so you had to learn that way. And so I burned a lot of friendships, kind of crushed a lot of friendships by having to fire some friends.
Right. Yep.
And, I fucking cried the first time I had to fire anyone. Like I've never had to fire one in my life. I'm like, fuck.
Yeah. It's worst.
It's like, it was a terrible feeling.
Yeah.
And then just had to kind of start looking at like LinkedIn and Indeed, you know what I mean? Just kind of putting out official jobs on these different like platforms. And, But again, I tapped into my San Diego State network. I tapped into the Entrepreneurship Center, and I just kind of had a pipeline there where just like students would kind of apply, and really wanted to make sure I was utilizing that as a resource, But yeah, it was all by experience, man.
How did you hire some of your key executives along the way? Because I'm assuming you hired a proper CFO, COO, whatever.
And this is another story too. It's like, you get to a point where the brand starts to scale, and the brand almost outpaces the talent of your team sometimes.
Oh yeah.
And so the company was growing at a pace that our employees weren't able to keep up with. And because they were younger, right? They didn't have the experience. So I was like so excited, but we couldn't afford any high-end executives. Like, I wanted the guy from Oakley.
Yeah.
I wanted the guy from Nike. I wanted the guy from GoPro, all these big companies, but we couldn't afford them.
Yeah.
So I was like, when we can afford them, we're going to go out and get them.
Yeah.
And so I had a bunch of college grads that were grinders that were like kind of getting us to this level, but I needed to get to that next level because we were really scaling and the business was growing, and we were going to be going into retail and going international. I had no experience. So I was like, all right, I got to go out and get these guys. And that was a whole other learning lesson. So yes, once we were able to finally afford some of these hires, I did get the guy from GoPro. I got the guy from Nike. I got the guy from you know what I mean? I got these big execs, and I brought.
How far in are we when this starts happening?
This is starting to happen in like 7 years, 2018, 2019, 2020. Like that's kind of when we started to get like real executives on board that had like real experience. And then I started to really see how those two things weren't meshing. It was oil and water. When you bring these higher execs in from these corporate companies with a local, scrappy, disruptive D2C brand, it's truly when like worlds collide. And it wasn't complementary. And what I realized I did is I put up a huge leadership wall between me and the team when I had direct access to everybody. Like I didn't really want an org chart like that. We were a flat organization. I had a desk by everybody else. Like, I didn't want the hierarchy. What was great about Blenders was like there was no hierarchy. It was self-managed. Everyone was able to, but then that created a lot of structure. They wanted to bring structure, approvals, and then I started realizing these higher execs just want to hire more people. They want to hire more people, and you're like, dude, no. Like,
what are you doing? I want to hire people to do what I need.
Outsource your job to other people. Yes. No, and so it just added a lot of unnecessary structure. And so what happened, the business started slowing down. Decisions started taking longer. And agility and speed was one of our biggest unfair advantages. And so my quality of life, I was very frustrated. I really struggled from going from founder mode to enterprise mode. Like I just did not, the tempo didn't work with me. So used to being like, if we saw something, we jumped on it. Like, we could do that in 2 months. And then it was like, oh no, we gotta make sure we do a survey and we get all this feedback. We bring everybody in, and it was like, no. Like that's not the brand. That's not the
So
culture.
did you fire some of those executives, or?
So we got to a point where it was like really difficult to start untangling some of these things, and like, I made some hires that I was more starry-eyed about. I was like, oh, that GoPro, Nike, they're gonna have all this experience. They're gonna come in, and I'm just gonna be like, I don't even need to tell you. You guys got this. So they come in. I didn't really sit them down and say exactly what was what this was gonna require and what was entailed. I didn't set the expectations. I figured that they were gonna come in and they already knew what to do.
They'd tell you what to do.
I was telling people that exactly. And so what happened is they came in and they're okay, and then they started making their own rules and establishing all these things. And I started saying yes. And then I looked around and I was like, wow, I got a culture of all the structure, all this red tape, all this, and that just didn't mesh well. And so, I started going in one by one was like, the business wasn't growing either. We were adding all these people and all this payroll. And for the longest time, the business and payroll were going up like this. And I was adding all these people, but the performance was going down. So for the first time in the company history, those two things were out of alignment. And that's where things really got challenging for me as a founder. Was like people wanted to get paid more, but the business wasn't growing.
Right, exactly.
And I'm like, why is this business not growing? What's going on? And it was like kind of it was like death by 1,000 paper cuts. It was just a lot of things that slowed us down. So I had to remove some positions, change some things, eliminate some levels, do like a whole reorg. I was like really confident that like, okay, we need to do a reorg because the organization was outdated. We were trying to take an outdated org chart and put it in like this new, in like this new world. I was talking to all these other founders about how they structured their teams, what was working for them.
Right.
And then I was like, I can't figure this out. Like org design for me was like so challenging.
Yeah. Yep.
And I'm like, this is crazy. Like I don't this is like a giant puzzle I can't figure out.
Well, we've laughed about this because, you know, you read the lines, I read in between the lines.
Yeah.
And I think the way our brains work, I'm sure you've done some work on dyslexia, but you know, it's kind of like most brains, there's this line in between the left and right side.
Yes.
Ours just zigzag all day long, back and forth between them. And so you're constantly processing information with two different motions.
Yes.
So sometimes you start to look at structure and you're like, the heck, man? Like,
what's going on?
Right.
What's going on?
Yeah.
And then on top of that, what happened was that just the business started getting so much more complex.
Yeah.
Complexity became just a killer. What started out as a very simple, clean, direct-to-consumer machine that we mastered, one channel, using social media, product development, you know, marketing, boom, boom, boom. We were faster than everyone. We were the D2C darling. Like, we were the case study for how D2C should be done. Then when we started to go omni-channel, things started to get way more complicated.
Yeah.
Retail, wholesale, Amazon, international. We added like 5 channels all at the same time.
Yikes. That's
And
wild.
it was my brain, like just, it was like a calculus. I just couldn't understand it. And it was so frustrating.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, we just shot ourselves in the foot. Like, what are we doing?
It's like going from one channel to 2 channels isn't twice as complicated. It's like 10 times more complicated.
Exactly. And like, this is where I really learned that growth can be like just as, growth is dangerous. Everybody wants to grow. But if you grow too fast, it's extremely dangerous.
So what happened when you expanded into all those channels? Was it did you go flat? Did you grow, but the revenue was flat, or like what happened?
Oh, we just went a mile wide and an inch deep on every one of them.
Yep.
And that's how you can't win doing that.
Yeah.
You got to go all in on one. You got to master it. Just like you got to make one great product and master it before you make the next, you know? So we like launched international, we launched in Canada, but we like tiptoed in. We just put up a website, but we didn't put boots on the ground, which is, you know, so it worked for like 5 months. And then it fell off.
Wow.
And then retail, we started opening up retail. We're like, wow, retail's a beast.
Yeah.
There's a lot of time to open up stores. It's very capital intensive and location matters. And like PB is kind of like an anomaly. So like we were like, how are we going to build retail? So we looked at our database and was like, all right, let's go to our most popular cities, right? And but didn't have any retail experience. So we started opening up stores.
Wow.
In all these different locations, all these different sizes with all these different formats.
Right.
And because I was like, all right, let's just learn. Let's just figure out what's going to be our format. And Santa Monica was our 3rd store that we opened on the Promenade.
Yeah.
And that one totally flopped.
Really?
Oh, wow.
Totally flopped.
It was probably the one you were most confident in.
I was most confident in. You know why? Because the realtor said, you know what, guys, this strip gets more traffic than Disneyland.
Wow.
So this was right after COVID. And he's like, the Promenade's going to resurge. He's like, if this, like, the math has to math.
Yeah,
this gets more traffic than Disneyland. This is the most prominent retail strip in the country.
Wow.
Apple, that we were sharing a wall with, does 125 million in 1
that
year.
store.
Wow.
We're like, all right, we share a wall with Apple, 125 million.
Should be good.
Lululemon does 25 million.
Yeah.
I was like, we can bring whole new energy to this block.
Why do you think it failed?
We got 40% less traffic than we promised.
Oh, jeez.
Wow.
Homelessness, crime. Santa Monica never came back.
Wow.
We got stuck in a lease that was like $50,000 a month. Oh. Our landlords held a gun to our head. We couldn't get out. You know, and our you know, our parent company had some like PTSD from retail back in the day. You know, they had a big retail chain that didn't do so well. I was very confident in retail because, you know, 80%, 70% of sunglasses are still purchased in store in America.
People want to try them on. Yeah.
And we've had billions of impressions over the years. So like our online was kind of hitting a place of like, if people saw us online, they've already saw us.
Yeah.
So that they needed to see us in person to really try us. And retail is experiential. And I felt like a lot of brands were too scared to do retail.
Yeah.
It's like, let's bet on retail.
Yeah.
And we just bet too big, too fast on Santa Monica. We got to six stores.
Okay.
But Santa Monica was the killer. That one killed our portfolio.
How many do we have now? How many stores?
We have 5 now.
Okay.
So where are they at?
PB, Encinitas, Austin, Houston, and Florida.
Does the Encinitas one do well?
It does well.
It's a cool vibe in there.
It's a cool vibe. Yeah.
What's like the stack rank them? How they
PB
kills
definitely number one.
still.
It's
okay.
Like it's where the brand's
Flagship.
built.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's made for it.
Encinitas, Austin.
Really?
And Houston's in a mall. So it's like an indoor mall in like the Galleria. And then Delray. So
the San Diego store is top 2.
100%.
Wow.
The parent company, talk to us a little bit with whatever you want to share about that experience of that transaction moment, that what happened, and just being, did they come to you? Were you looking to?
Yeah. So this was like a very interesting timing. You know, it's like acquisitions are so time sensitive.
Right.
They're so time sensitive. And I didn't realize how fragile the process can be, you know? But it was 2018, I started to pop my head above the weeds and started to really realize what I was building. I started to get calls from private equity. I was getting calls from strategics. People were showing up at our door. I was getting packages in the mail, emails saying, hey, we want to, we see you guys are on the rise. We want to invest. You ever thought about being acquired? And I knew nothing about getting acquired. I knew nothing about acquisitions. Like, I never started Blenders to sell it.
Right.
Yeah. I started it because I wanted to create a cool brand that was like meaningful. Right. But like 8 years in, I started to really see that like what I was creating and like the value that I was creating and the asset that this was becoming. And I remember, I was in Tennessee and I was speaking on a panel, and I get back to the hotel and I look at my phone, and the first email that pops up was our first lawsuit. And it was a $5 million lawsuit.
Wow.
And I was like, holy shit.
Was it for like brand infringement, or was it an employee?
It was a predatory lawsuit.
Yeah.
There's a checkbox on people's e-commerce sites that say sign up for newsletters, yes or no.
Oh,
and it was a pre-checkbox.
Yeah.
And they're like, I never signed up for this. They're so stupid. And they sued us for $5 million.
Was it like a class action?
And it was just one. Yeah, it was a class. Yeah. And it was one of those moments where I was like, holy shit.
You didn't even get like to go small first. You said that was the first one and it was $5 million.
That was like we got a couple letters before that, but like to actually get sued with a $5 million price tag, I was like, oh my God, all my self-worth is tied up in this business.
Right. Yeah.
This could be gone tomorrow.
Yeah.
Gone tomorrow, And so I started to really like get clear and started to really process what I was building and started to see all the interest. And then I kind of was like, all right, I need to take a step back. Why did I start this business? Why did I build this thing? I wanted to create a generational brand. We've grown for 7-8 years in a row. Can't do that forever. Right. And we're getting some serious interest about being acquired and people investing. Don't know anything about this. So I'm going to go on these dinners. I'm going to go to, I'm going to entertain some of this. I'm going to learn about it. And, this was when like D2C was kind of at its peak too. Like you started to see the Caspers and and like the like the Warby Parkers and like all these brands were these like, Allbirds, like they were getting crazy valuations. They were getting acquired. And I was like, okay, like I can go one or two ways. Like this could be a lifestyle business and I can just build it around my life. So I can go up and down, kind of like the surf brands I saw growing up. Didn't want that. Or I was like, I can make a power play and build this into a generational brand that's going to give this brand a long, like extra muscle that we don't have. Could we do it on our own? Yes, but it's going to take a lot longer.
Sure.
And so we started interviewing, investment bankers, talked to a ton of different investment bankers. We kind of aligned on one that we really liked and that had a lot of experience in direct to consumer. A lot of the other ones had like legacy experience,
sure.
And like D2C was this whole new thing.
Yeah.
They made a couple calls, and one of the calls they made to was Safilo, and they expected the call to be a minute and a half. It was the call was 50 minutes.
Yeah.
And they happened to be in Florida at the time. And at the time, they happened to be going through a transition with the CEO. They were like, losing some licenses in their portfolio.
Yeah,
so they were losing a lot of business. This D2C was just on the rise.
Yeah.
They wanted to transform the company, transcend the company. They were looking at it, and we were looking at it. And they were like, hey, you guys should come to San Diego and meet these guys. So they flew to San Diego. They were in suits, disguised as retail agents to kind of help us expand retail footprint. Because all this was confidential.
Of course.
I couldn't tell the team.
Right.
And with a culture that's so transparent, everything was out in the open.
Yeah.
This was one of those weird things, right? And we didn't even have like our book at the time.
Right.
You go through this whole process.
Sure.
You build your sim, and then you have all these meetings. Like what should have been 15 months got jammed into like 7 months.
Wow.
And so they were like, we love what we see. We love you, Chase. We love this brand. This is a great opportunity. And 30 days later, we had a term sheet.
No way.
Wow.
And we were like, whoa, this is real.
Yeah.
And and then we actually went into the whole we signed the docs, the whole process. This was December of 2019.
Okay.
Before COVID.
Wow.
And the deal was supposed to close in December, but we had some things that we had to clean up within the business that we had to clean up. That like the parent company was like, you guys got to clean these up first.
Yeah.
And so it gets announced to the press in December. The article breaks out. Blender sells for $90 million. Kid started from a $2,000 backpack.
Yeah.
But the deal wasn't closed. Deal wasn't closed. And
why did it get announced?
It got announced because I had a couple hiccups at the end that I needed to clean up.
Yeah.
You know, and there was just some like disclosure agreements that were kind of like button.
So we signed docs.
We signed docs. We were already like,
closed,
we already had the deal, but like it wasn't officially closed, you know? And then COVID hits and like, holy shit, what happens with COVID, right? March 15th hits, like e-com sales drop 50% overnight. And we're like, oh my God, the whole, like what's going to happen? The deal's not closed. Our sales just dropped 50% overnight.
Yeah.
Our production, we like called our factories. We were like working out of a WeWork at the time because our office was getting remodeled. We were building a newer office, a bigger office for expansion. And then this happens. And we're like, oh my God. And then next day goes by, sales, the world's shutting down. No one's buying anything.
Totally.
And so we call our factories, pause all production. We can't, we don't, sales dropped, COVID hits, blah, blah, blah. The unemployment kicks in. Then the stimulus checks kick in. And fucking boom. Sales go through the fucking roof.
Dang.
We're like, holy shit. Like,
party's back on.
Call the factory, get those products back on the line. Let's go.
Yeah.
Like within 30 days, sales were going absolutely haywire. And at that time, San Diego was experiencing a big shortage of like PPE. So like we've always done things that were close to the brand, like the brand's heart. You know, like we're big in breast cancer because my mom has had some breast cancer. So we do things in philanthropy that makes sense to the brand. This was an opportunity for us to show up. You know, so we were like, all right, we want to make 10,000 PPE products and give them out to local hospitals. Make those as fast as you can. So they made us like 10,000, got us those in a couple weeks. We gifted them out to all the hospitals. That was a huge moment for all the hospitals because it was a scary time. You know what I mean?
Were they branded?
They were branded. They were cool.
Yeah.
It was like,
of course. Yeah.
It was just a cool moment. It was like San Diego's had our back for the last 10 years, 9 years. Like it was our opportunity to give back, you know? And so we did that and that was a cool moment. And like, we actually made some change. Yeah. And, we sent our team, like we were like, our team's going to work from home. We're going to keep our team intact. We're not letting anybody go. I made that a kind of a like MO. We're not letting anybody, everybody's letting go of their teams. We're not letting go. Yeah. Kept our doors open at retail. And we were just riding this wave. Dang. And, you know, Safalo wanted those results on their books. Yep. Like, let's close the deal. So
the deal's back on. We're good. We're good.
So it's like, it became this like moment, you know? And, we went from fucking 40 million that year to 70 and our whole team was working from home.
Wow.
And it was like, whoa, you know? And so we closed this deal in the middle of a pandemic, man.
Wow.
June 1st, 2020. Like when the world was burning.
And that's wild because it was already announced. Like the story is like you closed right before it.
Right. But there's so many things that have to go right with deals, you know, and so many founders really never even get that opportunity to even entertain that, yet alone like be in like negotiations of even getting to that level. Totally. And it's like, as a surfer, you surf your whole life, you know, to like get the wave of your life, right? And like as a founder, this is one of those top of wave moments. Yeah, man. You know, and you don't have very many of those. Nope. And like when you do, it's like Prime was another one, right? It's like you surf your whole life for that moment. You work your whole life for that moment. Yeah.
And you can't predict it.
You can't predict
it. You know,
it.
just like even that being out in the ocean, I mean, the swells are coming and you know about it, but that perfect wave, nobody knows when it's going to come and when it's going to hit, but when it does, and that, you know, we're running out of time here, but the Prime one is a great one of, you guys, I mean, like I said, I remember watching in College Game Day and the dude slides them on and I was like, of course, didn't know each other at the time. And I'm going, man, whoever owns this company is freaking pumped right now.
That was unbelievable. And that was one of those moments too. It's like that was the same year that Santa Monica opened. It was a year late. And so we had no results to show for that other than like, you know, traffic and homelessness. And
exactly.
Like we were late on delivery. So like that was a big whale that I had no results for. We just signed a Red Bull deal for like F1. We sponsored the F1 Red Bull team. That was just off the ground. I had no results to show for that.
Yep.
And then I had Coach Prime. And so I was like, not only does this feel like this feels crazy, but this feels irresponsible.
Were you starting to feel the pressure from the parent company?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I bet.
Because when I shook the CEO's hand when we made this deal, I said, this is gonna be the best investment you ever made.
Yeah.
And I meant that.
Yeah.
And most founders sell, they get lazy, they check out, they go live their life, and they bounce.
Yep.
And like I took that extremely seriously.
Yeah.
I showed up and I worked way harder than I've ever worked.
Yep.
And I was very like, morally truthful of how I wanted to like show up and deliver those results.
Yeah.
And so, yes, I felt immense pressure. I felt it was irresponsible for bringing Coach Prime in at that moment, but it was one of those moments where I was like, if we don't do this, like we need to win. This was the Nike Jordan moment where they just bet the farm on this.
Yeah.
It saved the company.
Yeah.
And it was that moment for
so hard to know what bets are going to work out. And the truth of business is like, there's lots of losers and then one winner, and the one winner way outweighs all the other losers.
100%.
Nobody realizes that from the outside, but that's really how it works.
Totally. And this one came from my dad,
Oh, really?
This one came from my dad.
Shout out to Pops.
Shout out to Pops, man. Like Pops was a big Coach Prime fan. This was when he was at Jackson State coaching, and he just kept sending me like messages and like articles of Coach Prime. He's like, dude, you got to check out Coach Prime. Chase. You got to check out Coach Prime and see what he's doing. He's changing college football. I'm like, Dad, I'm late on Santa Monica and Red Bull. Like,
I can't.
Please stop. Like, you're like a parrot on my shoulder. Like, it's getting annoying.
Yeah.
And there was one message that he sent that I woke up to that I'll never forget. He's like, Chase, if you don't do this, somebody else will. I was like, all right, I'm going to reach out.
Yeah.
And plan on making a deal for next year.
Yeah.
It just so happens Coach Prime was in market for a sunglass deal. Blenders was on his radar.
No way.
But he wanted to know.
He wanted it done this year.
Wow.
He's like, it's this year. I was like, can we do next year? He's like, this is the year to do it.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, let's go. And what ended up being the wrong year was actually the best year. It was prime time.
Yeah.
Prime time.
Yeah.
And again, lightning in a bottle.
Yeah.
It was one of those like, I'm a gambler. I take risks. I like to make bets. That's why I am where I am. I'm not afraid. This is the moment. Like, do it. And so it just gave me that like gritty go for it.
But I think the thing that everybody needs to hear is because sometimes you kind of look at it and go, man, you got the Midas touch. Everything you touch works. That's not true. Santa Monica was a disaster. Shirts, hats was a disaster.
Wholesale was a disaster. Of it.
It was all about reps.
I mean, just everything. I have made every mistake you can possibly make and made them multiple times over. I'm not proud of it, but like that's
the story.
That's just the story, man. And like that's what the game is.
That is what the game is.
It's a game of endurance, and entrepreneurship is a game of endurance. How much can you endure, and how much can you take?
Yeah, it's good, man.
Absolutely.
What a pleasure. Man, thanks for coming in and just sharing your story. I always love to say this to founders, man, proud of you.
Thank you, man.
Proud of you for the work you did, the effort you put in, the late nights, the not paying yourself for 2 years until you paid yourself $1,000. Got to hear these stories because everybody just thinks, man, it's easy and it's not. And we're proud of what you did. And
thank you, man. Yeah, man. I'll be the first to say it. It's the biggest self-discovery journey you'll ever go on in your life.
100%.
You'll never learn more about what you're truly made of than like entrepreneurship.
That's it.
It has a big way of shining a big fat magnifying glass on your life and
on everything,
and exposing you in every single area of your life.
Every single way, every insecurity, every vulnerability, all of it.
But at the end of the day, you're building the biggest, boldest, baddest version of you.
Yep,
that's
right.
it. Like that's also what you're doing. Like you're not just building a business, you're building the baddest version of yourself.
That's so cool.
And I never would have known what I was what was capable. If I didn't bet on myself and went all in. And I think that's the moral of the story. It's like if you believe in yourself, bet on yourself. It's the best bet you can make.
Yep. Well, man, we're excited about your future, whatever it's going to hold.
Appreciate
that. I know it's going to be bold. And what's the phrase again?
Be seen, be loud.
Man, that
be
for your
seen,
next,
be loud.
May your next season be seen and be loud.
All right, let's go.
Right on, man.
Appreciate that, guys.
Your time,
Thank you, man.
All righty.